Welcome back everyone to the Hello World Guide. This is another episode of the Raycaster series, and in this video we are going to have some improvements with our player movement, our rendering, and the editor as well. So we are going to do some improvement and some fixes in those so that we are ready to start adding more stuff. And first of all, we are going to fix a little bit of a bug. So I'm going to actually run the game right now, and what you can see is that we are seeing our walls like this. Now what you might notice is that when you turn, the actual size of the wall seems to change. So the walls on this side seem like they are almost perfectly square, not really perfectly square, but they seem more square. But if you look at this, these seem like big rectangles, and if you turn, this constantly changes. You can see that the walls are like being squished in and out, and the reason behind that is a small typo basically in render.c, which I didn't even notice. So if I open up render.cpp, you can see that when we are calculating the plane, so when if I open up get the plane here, where we are getting the plane actually, yeah, here. So you can see we are actually multiplying the direction.x by 0.66 only, and we are not multiplying the direction.y at all, which means that it will only scale the x direction. The plane will only be scaled in the x direction and not on the y direction. So that would will obviously only cause it to be longer on one axis and shorter on the other. So if you're going to add a sf vector to f here, like this, so this is going to, we are going to basically multiply the whole vector by let's say 612 for now. And what you will see right now is that now that problem is gone. However, still these are not really square, these are rectangles. That because this actual value here is incorrect. So how can we calculate the value by which we need to multiply our plane? Well, that's actually fairly simple to do. So we're going to just have a constant expression float here called aspect, and we're going to set it to screen width divided by the screen height, and this value is essentially the half of the aspect ratio. So we're going to say aspect multiplied by 0.5. So that's going to give us what we need to multiply with in order to get the correct plane. And now you can see we get perfectly square walls, and those are looking correctly. So now our rendering bugs are fixed. Speaking of rendering bugs, let me open up player.cpp. I'm going to change the player half size back to 0.2 something like, because that was too large, or even 0.1. Let's leave it at 0.2. 0.1 is actually more better, but 0.2. So yeah, this is we have changed the player size now as well, but the player's movement isn't really that great. We don't have any support for strafing or anything, so it doesn't feel that good. So we are going to change that right now. So what I'm going to do is, for actually turning the player, we are going to switch it to the arrow keys instead of the the other key. So we're going to change this to right and change this to left. So we're going to change this to the arrow keys basically instead of the WASD keys, and then we are going to use the WASD keys for strafing and stuff. So the idea is that you can see we have got this here right now. You can see we have got our move vector here. Well, we are going to change this a bit. So we are going to calculate a float called delta x, which is going to be move.x, and delta y, which is not move.x by the way, it's going to be the cos of our radians. So the cos value of our radians, and then delta y is going to be the sine of our radians. So these are basically the delta x and delta y for the front direction. And then we are going to calculate a couple of vectors. So the first one is going to be front, or the forward vector, and this is going to represent the forward direction of the player. This is just the delta x and the delta y. And the second one is going to be the right vector, which is going to represent the right side of the player, which is essentially the perpendicular of the first vector. So in order to get the perpendicular, we just say negative dy and dx. So that gives us the correct values. And in here, instead of doing the cos and radians and everything, we are going to just get the whole vector and add front to it. And similarly for f, we are going to subtract front from it like this. That would be much better. We can remove this now, and as you can see, we can add strafing here quite easily as well. So we can just add an a here, which is going to subtract the right vector from it like that, and then we're going to have one here which is going to add the right vector to it, which is going to be the D key. So if I go ahead and run now, what you should be able to see is that we can turn around using the arrow keys, and we can also strafe. So yeah, you can see that is pretty awesome. You can see we can move around, we can strafe, and this is basically now allows us to move in circles as well. And I think that the sensitivity is a bit too slow. So for that, I'm going to go under the turn speed and change that player turn speed from 100 to something like 180, I guess. Perhaps that's a bit too much. but let's see. Yeah, that's actually isn't too bad. That's kind of right. Perhaps 150 would be better. You can just play around with these values until you find something that you like. So you can see that, yeah, this actually feels pretty good. So yeah, we have got the player movement and everything done here. So we are going to now look at the next problem, which is with the editor. So if I go ahead and run make, you can see that we can press escape to go into our editor mode, and here we can edit the everything basically here. So I can go here. You can see we have got we can make like a small room here with walls. So I can change this to like this wall, and I can make a small room here like this with just a little bit of space inside. Now say that I want to change the texture of this room inside, so I can want to basically change the floor texture and perhaps add a ceiling as well. So for that I can go to the floor mode, but in the floor mode I have absolutely no idea where I just made that room. I can kind of switch back to the mode to kind of guess where it's supposed to be, and that's kind of right, but it's very annoying. And just looking at it, like I'm going to switch it back to the default one. So just looking at it, normally you can't really tell where each of the walls are because you can't see them and you can't really draw the floor reliably. So we want to have kind of changed that. We want to allow the player to essentially the player or the editor actually to actually see the floor, the walls as well inside of this view. So the way we can do that is we can render the walls with some transparency. So I'm going to go ahead and open up editor.cpp here. You can see we have got all of this and it's kind of working. And what we will change is that where we are going to draw everything. So if I go here, you can see here we have got window.map.draw here with the current layer. Now we are going to go ahead and check if our map well, actually not map, we're going to check if our keyboard key is pressed, and we can designate any key for this. Let's say Q, so I'm going to say SF keyboard Q. So if that key is pressed, then what we will do is we will also draw the wall layer. So we are going to draw with our render target. We are going to pass it our cell size. Actually this is supposed to be window, and then we are going to draw the layer walls. So we are going to say map column layer walls. And if I go ahead and run that, you can see that it now is a lot better. So if I want to say, this is actually the 2D view, not the editor. If I go here, I press escape, you can see here we are in the editor. And if I draw like a something here, so if I draw this, if I want to change this, I can switch to the floor mode, and then I can press Q to see this, and I can actually do this, and I will still be editing the floor. So you can see I actually made the floor here like that. I can kind of do it like this and it will work. And yeah, that kind of works. You can see it is alright, but it would be much better if you could change it so that it would also display it in a bit of a transparent way instead of displaying it with completely complete opacity. So I'm going to open up map.cpp here. You can see that we are basically drawing all of the grid cells here, and that's alright, that's working. But what we will change here now is that we will allow it to actually take a special argument. So we are going to allow it to take a unsigned integer here as an argument, which is going to be the opacity, or let's just call it alpha. Now let's go under map.h. we are going to go under the draw function, and we are going to add a uint8 here. So uint8 here called alpha, and this is going to represent the alpha transparency that we want to draw our whole map with. And if we want to draw it with that transparency, then in that case what we will do is we will go here and we will say sprite.set color, and we are going to set the color to SF color, and we are going to just set it to white basically, but with the specific alpha that we are given. And in here we are just going to pass the alpha directly in the set fill color call. So if I go ahead and run make right now, you can see it gives error in a lot of places. So we are going to actually go under map.h, and we are going to change it so that by default the alpha value is always 255, so we don't have to put it everywhere. But I can go under editor.cpp, and in here I can change it to something like 50, I don't know. You can play around with the values and settle on something that you like. So if I go ahead and go under like this mode right now, you can see I can draw this not this. We can draw it in a different color. I can draw a wall here, a room kind of here, like that. For example, we can draw it like this, and then if I want to draw the floor, I can go here, I can press Q, and you can see I can get a very faint outline of the stuff that we actually need to draw. and we can just draw the floor here like this. Now the thing is that this is currently very low transparency, actually quite low, so we are going to change this to 120. I think that should be better. So you can try to change the values until you find something that you are comfortable with. So I can press Q. You can see I can see the walls here, and yeah, that's actually much better. Perhaps we can change this as well. Also, if the transparency is not null, another thing we'd like to change is that we are going to go ahead and add here, if the alpha is not 255, actually alpha is 255 only, then we want to actually draw this color. So you might be wondering why that. Well, that's just because we don't want it to gray out the the floor or the ceiling parts, the ceiling cells that don't have any walls over them. So we just don't want it to render any walls in the places where there are none. So we don't want it to render like gray blocks with less transparency. So if I go here, you can see now it's a lot better because it's not dimming any of the ones that already exist, which means that I can go here, and now I think it would be quite comfortable if we increase this to something much higher, like 180. I don't know, perhaps that's a bit too high, but you can try to change the values until you find something you like. But I think this looks okay. It gives a nice view of the walls while still displaying kind of what texture is beneath that, and you can draw it quite easily. So anyways guys, this is going to be pretty much it for this video, and in this video we have improved quite a lot of things in our engine, and I'll see you in the next one, in which we'll start adding some more interesting stuff. So stay tuned for that. Make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one, and share this video with other people as well, and I'll see you in the next one, and